Let me ask you, this ever pop up in your calculator yet? Math error? You ever wonder why? Sometimes it's because of what we put inside of it. Let's look at it. So I have 9 and we're dividing that by 0. 9 divided by 0, many persons would think is 0. But look at it. Math error. So dividing by 0 is an issue. Another issue, look at it. Square root of negative 36. Math error. So finding the square root of a negative number is a problem. Why is it a problem? Let me explain. Think about it as making cornflakes but using ketchup. That makes sense to you? Not exactly. So certain functions based on what you input or you put inside of it does not make any sense. And let's look at 2 scenarios. The first one that we looked at in the calculator was dividing by 0. Let's go again. So 6 divided by 0 does not make any sense because you can't share 6 for nobody. Good. And then again, the square root of a negative number is also a problem. So a function becomes undefined, or a function doesn't make sense based on some of the inputs that we put in. And dividing by 0 is one condition that makes a function undefined, or finding the square root of a negative number is another condition that makes a function undefined. And undefined means it don't make sense, you can't get an answer out of it, it's going to turn out to be a math error. So let's look at this question. It says, what value of x makes the function g of x 7 divided by 3x plus 6 undefined? So we're going to be focusing on the condition where the denominator is 0. So what we need to do is to set the denominator part equal to 0, because it will work out to be 7 divided by 0, and dividing by 0 doesn't make any sense. So let's go. And that is what undefined mean. The function don't make no sense based on what you put in. So g of x is equal to 3x is equal to 7 divided by 3x plus 6. So I want the denominator part to be equal to 0. So I'm going to take it and I'm just going to set it equal to 0, which just means 0 is equal to the result. So what I need to do now is to solve for the value of x. So I'm going to subtract 6 from both sides. 0 take away 6 will give us negative 6. This will cancel, and I'm going to pull down this 3x. To get x on its own, we divide both sides by 3, and that's a positive 3. So these will cancel, leaving me with just x. And x is going to be negative 6 divided by 3, which will give us negative 2. So it says this means if you input negative 2 inside the function g of x, then it's not going to make any sense. Let us test and prove it. So we're going to check it. So g of x is supposed to be equal to 7 divided by 3x plus 6. Good. So we got our answer to be negative 2. So I'm going to substitute negative 2 for x. And I'm just going to work it out. So we have 7 divided by 3 times negative 2. That's negative 6 plus 6. And negative 6 plus 6 is going to be equal to 0. So we'll have 7 divided by 0. And this is just undefined. If you put it in your calculator. So, to check if a function is undefined, especially when the function is set up as a fraction, just set the denominator equal to 0 and solve for x. That is the value that makes the function undefined, which really means that input value makes the function senseless. Alright, so here's another example. What value for x makes the function h of x, which is equal to 6 over 2 minus 3x, undefined? Remember what we need to make the function undefined, especially when it's set up as a fraction? Just set the denominator part equal to 0. So we're going to set 2 minus 3x equal to 0. So I have 2 minus 3x, I was setting it equal to 0. And all we need to do now is to solve for x. So I'm going to, remember is x we need. So I'm going to take away 2 from both sides. And this one is a little tricky because notice that there's a negative here and the x is at the back. So this will cancel, leaving us with negative 3x. You see that? And 2 take away, and 0 take away 2 is negative 2. You see that so far? Now I need to get rid of this negative 3 that is attached to the x. So I'm going to divide both sides by negative 3. So these cancel, leaving us with just x. And a negative divided by a negative will give us a positive. So I'm going to leave the sign out. And you just end up with a fraction. 2/3. So it's saying that if I put 2/3 into this fraction, or into this function, it's going to be undefined. And I'm going to leave you to prove that, if you think you can manage it.